In this video, we're going to show you how to install the thermostat and housing on your Volvo XC60 located on the front portion of your engine. With your hood open, go ahead and locate the expansion tank on the passenger side of the engine bay. You want to go ahead and clean this off. You can use some spray solvent. You want to make sure that when we open up our reservoir that you don't get any debris inside the cooling system. With the reservoir clean, go ahead and open up the expansion tank. You do want to make sure that the engine is cool when you're doing this job. Open this up and set it aside. Now on the bottom side of the engine here, we have the splash shield. There should be 8 T30 Torx screws holding the splash shield to the bottom of the engine cradle. You want to get and loosen and remove these. Now, if you just go around the perimeter, you're going to find all of these here. Ours is missing a majority of these here and only currently have 4 holding it in place. Once you remove all of these here, you can go ahead and take that cover and set it aside. On the driver's side lower portion of a radiator, you're going to go ahead and notice the drain port right here, or the petcock. The coolant is going to come out of the side port and maybe a little bit out of the valve itself. You want to go ahead and grab that and turn that counterclockwise. And ours is a little tight. Go ahead and use a pair of pliers and you can go ahead and grab that and turn that counterclockwise. And as you turn it, it's going to come out towards you. Make sure you have your catch can underneath to go ahead and catch that coolant. Now we want to give this a little bit of time for this to drain out. Now that we're good with our draining process here, let's go ahead and close this up. Go ahead and grab a rag and just wipe up any of the residual coolant here. Our next step, remove the air intake tube here. Now there's going to be 2 clamps holding this in place. There's one right here with a 7mm screw head on it. You can use a flathead or the 7mm socket. And if you follow those down to the throttle body down below, there's going to be another one down there. This one's easy to access. Just going to loosen it. You're not going to disconnect the entire clamp or unscrew the whole thing. Let's go ahead and get the lower one. Now we're going to use a long extension and our 8mm socket. Let's go ahead and loosen this. We're going to remove the 4 T25 Torx bit screws holding our air filter lid box in place. Pop that off, set that aside. And let's go ahead and pull out the air intake tube. Basically just gonna wiggle this around and pop it off of the throttle body down below. Pull that up and out. Now right above our throttle body, there's gonna be this component right here and is held in place just on a rubber grommet onto a clip. I'm gonna go ahead and spray that rubber grommet with some spray solvent. And then grab this, I wanna disconnect that. Just grab that and pull that up and off. You want to reach down here underneath the intake and you're going to locate the throttle body. We want to disconnect this here. There's a bolt right here, or a screw, and there's one over here, and then there's two on the bottom here, and one over here. Now we're going to use our T30 Torx bit to go ahead and loosen these bolts. There's one of them there. Let's go ahead and do the other three. And we should be able to grab that throttle body, give that a little wiggle. There it is. And grab that and just rest that down out of the way. You want to go ahead and disconnect this connector right here. And it's going to be a little metal spring clip. If you push on it, you can actually see it sliding up and down. So we're going to push on that, and we need to disconnect this. So we're just going to reach down, hold that module that we just pulled off on that rubber grommet, and wiggle this connector off. There it is. So there's that little spring clip right here. You're just going to push on that and it releases the locking mechanism on that. Now on the bottom, there is a gray locking clip per se, and it has little textured lines on it. Now if you put your hand on it, you can feel the same textured lines on the other side, and if you pinch those, it's going to open that up. It's going to release the locking mechanism there. So you push on this side and on the other side and pull it away from that module. So there it is right there. You just push on these two tabs and then pull it out. So now we just have that module there that we had pulled out before. It's now floating. It's probably going to be attached to the backside of our intake. That's why we had to disconnect these two other components to it. Now on our intake manifold, if you follow down right on the center, it's going to bring us to these two connectors right here. I want to go ahead and disconnect these here. So there's a little tab right there you want to push in on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver. I'm going to push in on this right here. And pry that off. I don't want to pull on the wires at all. That's why I'm using the screwdriver to assist in popping that off. Now we have the connector right here. I'm going to transition into a pair of hose pliers here. And I want to pinch this tab on the front here and just gently wiggle this up and off, like so. Well, on the top of our intake, if you come back here, there's a vacuum hose and there's a soft trim here. I'm going to use my hose pliers. I'm going to gently pinch the plastic housing here and gently pull outward. So what I did is I popped that off, but this can be a little complicated. I push in on it, pinch, and then pull. And that should separate. Now if you follow it over to the left here, it goes into a little retainer. Well, you can pop that right off here like that. Set that off to the side. Now we're going to access another connector on the lower portion of the intake. Now the connector is right here, and if you were to look at it from up above, this connector right here is going to be just below the other two that we disconnected. It's tough to get to up top. So from underneath, we're just going to reach up, pinch the little tab on the top of it, and undo that connector there. Now at the base of our intake manifold, in front of the oil pan, you're going to notice two 8mm bolts right here. This secures the lower portion of the intake to the engine. So we're going to use our 8mm socket with our ratchet. And we want to loosen and remove these. If we get to a point, we could just spin those out by hand. Okay, let's go ahead and remove both of these, set those aside. Now before we unbolt our intake, it's always highly recommended to go ahead and use some compressed air and blow out around here, get rid of any dirt and debris. You don't want anything to fall down inside the engine when we disconnect the intake. So make sure you're wearing safety glasses. Now there's going to be 7 10mm bolts that run right across the top of the intake here. When doing this here, it's always recommended that you do this with the engine cool. On plastic intakes, I like to evenly loosen the bolts. Once they're all broken free and loose, I'm going to transition over to a power tool and go ahead and zip these out. Let's go ahead and disconnect this connector here to our fuel rail. I'm going to use a pair of hose pliers here. Gently pinch this tab. And then slide that off. I'll go ahead and separate the intake here. And at this point here, we just need to finagle this up and around. Just have to manipulate your AC hoses over here. We're pulling this up and out. There we go. Now right here is our thermostat and housing unit. We have our radiator hose we need to disconnect. We have the sensor right here, and then we have another hose on the bottom we need to disconnect. Now we did put a catch can underneath with a big funnel to go ahead and capture any more coolant that might come out. I'm going to come on over here to this hose. We're going to use a 7mm socket to go ahead and loosen this hose clamp. Now you can use a flathead screwdriver as well right in the center of it. Should have enough of play in that. Use our hose pliers here. that down and off. Now there is coolant sitting right inside that hose there. Shouldn't go anywhere. Now right here we're going to disconnect the harness from the sensor. Should be a little pinch tab on the bottom side of this gray connector. Should be able to pinch and pull. But typical with these here, you end up having to use some sort of pliers of some sort if you can. A pair of hose pliers, you can pinch that and pop that off. Now we have our upper radiator hose here. I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver. Come on in here. You remove that little horseshoe clip here. Set that aside. All right, there's really no good place to really set that. Try and tuck it off to the side if you can. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses in case that hose should flop back. But we are now ready to remove the hardware holding our thermostat housing in place here. All right, so here we have our new unit, and we want to show you, it's going to be 4 T30 Torx bits holding it. There's 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. So the easier ones to see are the 2 top ones, and we'll just have to kind of work a little blind on the bottom to go ahead and get those bottom ones out. So let's get to it. You can see I'm just using a stubby ratchet here. I'm using a wobbly head socket or extension to go ahead and get in there. Now, if you're tackling this job here, it seems pretty daunting, but in all reality, it comes apart pretty simple. A little bit of time, and you can do this. You want to be careful with these lower ones. I want to try not to drop those. And this is our last bolt. All right, all 4 of these bolts are all the same size, so there's no issues putting them back in. I'm going to grab this, lift it up, let the coolant dribble out, and pull that out. Now our gasket started pulling out of our thermostat, so you want to make sure that that comes off. Make sure it's not still stuck to the engine. And I want to go ahead and clean the surface of where our new thermostat and housing is going to go. I don't recommend spraying this because you don't want to get chemicals inside the coolant passages here. So you can just spray some solvent on a rag and just wipe off the surface here. Now before you install the new part, you want to flip it over. Make sure that the gasket is installed. Make sure you press it in all the way and it's fully seated. We'll go ahead and line this up. And we're off a little bit there. I'm going to go ahead and get the two upper bolts started. This is where the wobbly head extensions come in. It gives that little bit of flexibility without having to use a swivel. So that means you can, has that wobble on there. And that's why I have my extensions marked with red tape, so I know that these are all my wobblies. Throw them in your toolbox, and a great little tool to have. Once you get all four of them started, you can go back, run them all down. Pop my ratchet on here. Now I'm just going to gently snug these down, and then we'll come back and we'll torque them down. Because this is plastic, but it does have the metal sleeves inside where the bolts go, we still want to go ahead and torque these properly. Let's go ahead and torque these down to 7.3 foot-pounds. Right, let's go ahead and bring our radiator hose over, line that up. Now on our housing here, there's a higher tab right here on the top, and then there's one exactly on the other side, and it's going to line up with two notches on your upper radiator hose, the plastic housing here. Okay, now we're going to install our retainer here. Okay, that's in place. Grab your electrical connector, we're going to line that up. Okay, get that pushed in, locked on. Then we have our other hose we need to install down below here. And push this up and on. Definitely want to make sure that that's good and snug. Just clean up around all these ports here, making sure that our gasket is going to have a good seal. We have some spray solvent on our rag. And go ahead and periodically just kind of flip that rag and put on some fresh solvent and clean this. And just continue this process for the other three. Before installing your intake, go ahead and check those intake gaskets. Make sure that they are still in good shape and that they're sticking up beyond the plastic intake itself. If they seem like they're flush, you want to go ahead and replace these at this time. Ours is in good shape. Let's go ahead and drop our intake into position. Now that we have it dropped in, let's go ahead and get a couple of these bolts started. We're going to run these bolts down. We're not going to tighten them, we just want to bottom them out. Let's torque down our intake bolts to 12.5 foot-pounds. Let's install our fuel rail harness. Now from underneath, you're going to grab that connector, install that in over here, press it on. Now let's go ahead and install the two bolts on the lower portion of the intake. Just snug these down. Let's go ahead and install our lower splash shield. Go ahead and get that lined up. I'm going to go ahead and install one of the screws in the front here by hand, and then we'll put one in the back that'll hold it in place. These two will hold it up while we install the rest. Now there's going to be a total of 8. Go ahead and install all of them around the perimeter, and then we'll snug them down. All right, now that you have them all in, let's go ahead and snug them down. You just want to go ahead and snug these down gently. And just repeat this all the way around. And you're all set. Let's go ahead and install these two connectors here. Here, and feel that one connect. This one here goes just on the inside right here. Install this upper hose, line that up, and just push it on. You're gonna feel it and hear it lock. Give it a little tug, make sure it's locked into place, and then don't forget to secure that. Pop that on. We want to go ahead and install our throttle body next. You do want to make sure that the gasket itself is in good condition on the intake itself. Ours is in good shape. I'm going to go ahead and grab one of our screws here. Bring this up into position. Just want to get one of those started. Get the other ones lined up and started as well. Now we do want to make sure that our harnesses and everything that we need to install are not being pinched anywhere. Everything is perfect. So let's now go ahead and snug those screws down there. All right, once it bottoms out, that's good. I'm just going to do the same for the others. Here we go. We're going to install our unit right here. Pushing this down onto that bracket. And we're going to install this lower hose there. I'm just going to line that up and it should push right on. There it is. You could hear it and feel it click into place. Then we have the electrical connector on the top here. Simply line that up. I'm going to push it down and then push in on that spring clip there. Be sure to tug on that electrical connector, make sure that it's locked into place. Go ahead and feed your air intake tube down in a position here. I want to get that onto our throttle body down below. Make sure you put your clamp on here. Let's go ahead and position our air filter lid in place here. All right, with that in position, let's go ahead and secure the screws on our lid box here. Now I'm just going to continue to secure the two back ones here. All right, with that secured, let's go ahead and get our intake hose clamp secured. And then just put your clip on there. Let's go ahead and secure the lower clamp. Grab the engine cover. Line up the oil fill cap with the center here. And this almost lines up perfect. Just push down. And you're all set. Grab a clean funnel. And we're going to add coolant. I'm going to go ahead and fill this up to the full line on the side of the reservoir. After you've done this here, go ahead and install the cap. I'm going to go ahead and start up the vehicle, let it run about 10-15 minutes. Make sure that thermostat opens up. Once it does, you want to come back here, take a look at that reservoir, make sure that that is at the full mark. Never open this up when it's hot, but after the engine cools down, you want to go ahead and top this off to the full line if necessary. If not, you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.